House Republicans follow in Lisa Murkowski's footsteps, launching another effort to stop EPA from regulating greenhouse gases. Also, energy efficiency in your home. The president hits the road this morning touting the Cash for Clunkers program and what could emerge as a roadblock in the push for new U.S. nuclear generation.
From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
Good Tuesday morning. I'm Tyler Suders in for Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for the Energy Report on this second day of March 2010. This afternoon, House Republicans will discuss what they are behind right now. That is their latest move to keep EPA from regulating GHGs under the Clean Air Act. Minority Leader John Boehner and his colleagues are introducing a resolution to nullify the agency's endangerment finding. Remember, that's the ruling that made this basis for the proposed regulation. Senate Republican Lisa Murkowski is, of course, pushing a similar plan, and some House Democrats introduced their own version just last week. This measure, the GOP House version, would require a simple majority to clear the House, and if any of these becomes law, they would then in turn force EPA to begin the rulemaking process all over again. But the White House is standing behind the EPA, making a veto likely. Another move to prevent EPA regulation is now underway in the courts. More than 24 petitions are now challenging the EPA ruling. You can see former EPA Attorney Dick Stoll discussing these lawsuits and also the legal process that lies ahead. That's all here on our website. Later today, President Obama will visit the Savannah Technical College in Georgia. He is highlighting how making U.S. homes more energy efficient can create domestic jobs. The president will tour a training facility for installing energy-efficient systems, things like solar panels. And this comes as the president presses Congress to enact a program to provide incentives for weatherization. The president will showcase his $6 billion Homestar, or Cash for Clunkers program. It's designed to encourage homeowners to make energy efficiency improvements to their homes by offering rebates, much like the Cash for Clunkers program, where consumers get the rebates right when they purchase these items. Places like Lowe's and Home Depot will then get reimbursed by the government. Included in this program, things like new windows, insulation, doors, roofs, and modernizing heating and cooling equipment. The White House also says Homestar will be, quote, one of the fastest, easiest, and cheapest things to do by putting people to work while also saving money. The administration expects 2 to 3 million homeowners to participate in this program. Today is the final day of this year's EnergyBiz Leadership Forum here in Washington. Energy sector leaders from around the country are here primarily talking policy. This as the Senate, of course, prepares to address clean energy and climate legislation in the coming months. Among the speakers, this man, Nuclear Regulatory Commission Chairman Gregory Yatsko. Following his speech, he and I discussed what the recent federal loan guarantee announcement will mean for the NRC and also the private sector push that's underway right now for a streamlining of the COL licensing process. Also speaking at the forum, PSE&G leader Ralph Izzo, and we talked about what the upcoming Senate climate bill will mean for utilities. Will utilities complain the loudest and the longest if they are capped, or will they suffer the most?
I don't think it'll be either, and I hope that utilities don't balk at being the first to go. I think that makes enormous sense. I think if you're going to do something about climate change, you have to do something about two things. Number one is transportation. Well, let's electrify transportation. And then number two would subsume number one, and that would be electricity. So if you're going to regulate carbon in the electric sector and you electrify transportation, you will have captured the two biggest sources of carbon that our nation faces. So why not start there?
Ralph Izzo and I also discussed why he is still pushing for a cap-and-trade system, even amid reports that senators are now looking for other options to cap carbon emissions. You can see our conversation, plus all of our interviews with newsmakers at the EnergyBiz Leadership Forum. That's here at cleanskies.com. Georgia's Municipal Electric Authority now plans to borrow more than $2.5 billion this week. It's an effort to help finance its share of 2 new nuclear reactors now in the way. The money would go toward the proposed $14 billion expansion at Southern Company's Vogtle plant outside Augusta. This is the pre-nuclear construction that's underway right now. The subsidies would supplement more than $8 billion in conditional loan guarantees the federal government offered to the owners of the proposed project last month. The move comes as utilities look for additional financing for the next generation of U.S. nuclear plants. Obviously not an easy task. In fact, the Washington Post is reporting that utilities are now asking states for the ability to charge customers higher rates during the construction process. Utilities argue that such financing can save billions in projected costs, but the idea is not sitting well with major industrial users. They are fighting the higher rates push, casting doubt on projects in Missouri, South Carolina, and also Texas. Overseas this morning, 31 coal miners are now trapped underground in China. That's the result of a deadly accident in the northern region of that country. The China Daily says the mine in Wuhai flooded yesterday. Premier Wen Jiabo ordered rescue efforts to continue just as quickly as possible to save those trapped miners. Construction on the mine has been ongoing since 2006. Increasing demand for resources as well as lax safety standards, they have combined to make China's mines the most dangerous in the world. So far, only one person reported dead in that most recent accident. A South Korean gas company is now planning to invest more than $500 million this year alone in 2 gas shale plays in British Columbia. State-owned Korea Gas says it will bankroll development in the formations under a 3-year deal with Canadian gas giant Encana Corporation, and it has plans to spend more than $1 billion over 5 years. South Korea is a major natural gas consumer, but according to the IEA, that country produces only about 1% of the natural gas that it uses domestically. The country has already signed an agreement to buy liquefied natural gas from an export terminal planned on British Columbia's northern coast. This morning, British oil drilling off the Falkland Islands is heating up a long-time dispute between Great Britain and Argentina. And now, the latter of those two countries, Argentina, is asking the U.S. to step in and try and resolve this matter. Argentina says it has sovereignty over the islands. It calls them the Malvinas. But Britain's Desire Petroleum set up an oil rig off the islands last week. Argentina says Desire never asked permission, though. Desire says its rig is within the British waters off of the islands. This dispute, of course, reignites tensions between these two countries marked by the 1982 war. Argentinian President Cristina Fernandez has asked U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton for help. Secretary Clinton, for her part, says she will encourage the two countries to talk. Great Britain, however, has opposed any outside mediation. And in Sweden this morning, the country says it wants to expand its wind capacity and build 2,000 new turbines over the next 10 years. The government is proposing increasing wind power by 10 terawatt hours. It's part of an overall national plan to boost total production from alternative sources in Sweden by 25 terawatt hours. That's roughly the equivalent to about half the power now generated by the country's nuclear reactors. Sweden wants renewables to account for half of its national power supply by 2020. It's part of its overall plan to reduce GHG emissions 40% from its 1990 levels. A busy day here in Washington on this Tuesday. Here is a look at some of the events we're following for you. 9 a.m. Eastern, ARPA-E begins its Energy Innovation Summit program. This is taking place at the Gaylord Convention Center, a 2-day program there. It focuses on supporting America's breakthrough energy innovators. Clean Skies News is there, and Susan McGinnis will report from the conference later today. At 2:30 this afternoon, as we mentioned, House Minority Leader John Boehner and some of his colleagues are holding a press conference introducing their resolution of disapproval regarding EPA's endangerment finding. Clean Skies News will be covering that event as well. And tonight at 6:30 Eastern, the World Affairs Council is presenting a special briefing on climate change at the Charles Sumner School. That's here in Washington, D.C. And that is this Tuesday morning edition of the Energy Report. Thanks for joining us. A reminder, you can follow us throughout your day on Twitter and Facebook and reach our team here in Washington anytime at contact@cleanskies.com. From all of us here in the Energy News Center, we're glad you're with us. I'm Tyler Suiters, and you're watching Clean Skies News.